This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter.
At Pepe Sayer, we focus on quality. So if someone comes into your restaurant and they see you're using Pepe Sayer, they know immediately that that is a quality product you've got in front of you on the table. And that comes from a decade of just doing quality butter day after day.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
Consistency is the key, is number one key. Without consistency, you get very upset customers at times, but you need to keep them happy. I mean, we're the one paying your wages at the end of the day. So I guess the best, you keep them happy.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. As we've discussed a few times on Deep in the Weeds, regional dining is booming. And much like our main cities, the culinary landscape is being brought to life by those from rich cultures and with experiences from all over the globe. Ludo Baulacky is the head chef of River Deck Café in Albury, regional New South Wales. Ludo, how are you?
Very good, thank you, Huck. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to have you on the show. What's the situation at the moment? There's been sort of floods all over the country of late, and I know you've been closed for a little bit. What's happening with the water and the restaurant?
Well, the water for Banks of Murray has broken, and we are situated in a park. So water's been rising and cut off our main access to the restaurant. And yeah, we've been shut for going on 3 weeks now, and we don't know how long it's going to be for. It might be 2 or 3 more weeks to go, weather depending, obviously. And yeah, pretty much just a waiting game at the moment.
Well, there's been all sorts of things impacting your business over the last couple of years, as for many. What sort of impact is this having on your job and the restaurant?
Well, I guess for the job, I mean, for mental pretty much capabilities for the staff, it's pretty much just keeping in touch with them and making sure everyone is all right. In terms of business, well, yes, we do have the insurance kicking in, but it's a long process. But yeah, just to get rid of a stock, to start again from scratch in another 4 weeks, that's pretty much very daunting. We actually were flooded like 5 years ago. So yeah, completely. Water rose above a meter. So we had to use kayaks to go to the restaurant, to check on the restaurant. Yes, that was interesting times. And yeah, again, with all these wet phenomenon, and it seems to be happening again. So yeah, I've just need to wait and see pretty much now.
How did you end up in Albury?
Well, I came over from England with a Sofitel, and I got a transfer to come and run number 35 in the city, and yeah, I was here for 3 years contract. And then pretty much I met my partner after 2.5 and never left Australia. And yeah, so I mean, obviously I live in Beechworth now, so which is about 40 minutes from Albury. And that's how I ended up in regional Victoria, pretty much.
Tell us a little bit about what it's like living there and running a restaurant.
I think regional countries have a lot to offer in terms of abundance of good produce, farmers, and connect to the earth. Also, visiting farms and knowing what you're putting on your plate. I like it being regional. It's more of a life balance for me, and also being a dad, I get to spend more time with the kids also after work, instead of being stuck behind a stove all day, all night. But so you have a good balance of hours and life at the end of the day.
You briefly mentioned that you came to Australia from London, but take us back to before that time. Take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family?
I guess mum and dad were pretty good cooks. You know, I grew up with like my grandma doing all her food on just wood fire, and the smell, you know, going to a house, the smell and all the dishes being like smoked dishes were fantastic. And also, you know, dad, mum used to cook pretty much from, I mean, living back in Mauritius, I used to have like fresh fish, lobsters, crabs just coming into the house, pretty much like venison leg, just, you know, being freshly hunted, and just cook with that pretty much. So yeah, pretty much the sort of, that's where it started. Yeah.
Are there any sort of feasts or dishes that you remember from your time when you were young?
Oh, pretty much. I mean, Dad used to put like a whole suckling pig on the barbecue. Sometimes burn it, and you know, sometimes like, oh yeah, or it's like, oh, it's burned, Dad, but you know, it's like, oh well, it tastes better when it's burned, so just keep eating. So yeah, I mean, you know, like wild boar. Wild boar was pretty much, Dad used to hunt also, so wild boar was something we had very often. You know, even in a stew or just on top of a barbecue or just grill as it is. So yeah, it was pretty much like not a feast, just like a regular, like sort of chicken for us down there at the time. And rabbit also used to hunt, used to go rabbit hunting. And then, yeah, it's pretty much just like a lot of barbecue food, really, back in when I was a kid. So that sort of, you know, maybe kicked in sort of thinking, well, maybe or not I was going to be a chef. I wouldn't have a clue, but yeah, it just came up like that pretty much. Yeah.
What were your first steps into the industry? Do you have any stories of that time?
Yeah, I went to pretty much boarding school to finish my studies in England. And then after that, I went to do an apprenticeship from TAFE back in the UK. Started at the Claridge's, and where it was a year and a half of, you know, just peeling potatoes, peeling onions, turning potatoes, and you know, all was little jobs that, you know, apprentices start with. And then it was pretty much from there. You know, I went to a little competition where I got picked up from. I won a competition, then just pretty much just got transferred to. Well, I did apply for the work, and then Albert, who at the time, who was still alive, just pretty much approached me and said, "Oh, would you like to come and work with me?" And then that's how it started. And up to now, I'm still in touch with his right-hand man. But yeah, I've got some. I did work for Albert for quite a long time, going to Amsterdam, Ascot races. Yeah, I was very privileged to actually meet him and work with him for a long, long time.
Do you have any stories of the connections you made or some of the dinners that you put on?
Oh yeah, I've got quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, I was called the golden boy back in the days because we say he used to come in. I mean, I was a sous chef at one of his restaurant, and he used to come in and he wouldn't call to anyone. So can I speak? He used to call me Lulu. So he used to say, oh, can I speak to Lulu? And he was like, oh, well, I need my breakfast now. So it was 3 scrambled eggs, a ton of butter and cream, and you know, very, very luxury scrambled eggs. And if it wasn't right, well, I would hear about it for a week. But yeah, it was always to the point with me. Even, you know, in the main kitchen, sometimes he used to come in with his walking stick, and any mistakes I did was just be a poke in the ribs. So I could learn the hard way. And look, it was good experience. It was just say yes, chef, and move on from my mistakes. And if it was not seasoned enough, well, I would have been yelled at so many times. But you learn from your mistakes, and but look, I mean, the experience I had with him was second to none, and I have no regrets working for him at all, even though it was the hardest years of my career. But loved every minute of it. Even when I did I did do some work at the Gavroche also for his son, and that was fantastic. Also, well, the son was a bit better in terms of softer than the dad, which was a good thing. But it was a good experience too at the end of the day.
When you first arrived in Melbourne, was it quite different to what you were used to? Are you surprised by the dining landscape?
Yes, I mean the atmosphere was more relaxed in terms of what was expected. I thought it was going to be very hard, but when I got there, it was in a transition of changing from restaurant used to be called Café La back in the days to number 35, so that was a brand change. And yeah, it was. Well, I guess it was very smooth in terms of operation and expectation. It was more, just getting into the rhythm of things really, and making sure you do your stuff properly, not too much pressure. I mean, the restaurant was reputed for the view, so and when we had to turn that around in terms of good food also. But it was a good experience, no issues at all. So, and I did enjoy it.
The Stanley Gastropub in Victoria was your first head chef gig. What was that like, stepping into that role and creating your own food in that environment?
Oh, it was great. I believe that it was a good change for me. Well, we moved here. Because my partner is from here, and pretty much, yeah, it was good. I mean, I managed pretty much after 6 months, I managed to get 14.5 in a good food guide straight away, and then from there, pretty much, everyone was like back in the days was Larissa Dubecki. I think she was the editor of a good food guide. Met her a couple of times. And still up to date. We're still in touch with each other, yeah, that was a good thing. Introducing locally produced. I had a garden also at the Stanley. So grew up, did some foraging, which the pine forest was next door to us. Had the berry farm and other local producers and just people from a house garden just turning up with buckets of limes and lemons and apples and whatnot. So yeah, I was really abundant of produce around here. So that was fantastic. Just cook with whatever was there around and not buying over 300 k's radius.
As you mentioned, you did capture the sort of attention of the food media. Tell us a bit about the food that you were cooking there.
Oh, I guess it was pretty much my philosophy was not complicated. Just keep it easy, full of flavors, and we see with twist of modern techniques, but keep it simple. Yes, and then pretty much the media just kept following, until pretty much all my career up to now, pretty much.
Well, a lot of your career in Australia has been in regional Victoria. Now, tell us about some of the influences and the connections and the important venues that you've been part of.
Well, I did. I guess regional Victoria is where I was based after I left the city. Being in regional Victoria sort of opened a lot of doors for me. I did a bit at Brown Brothers, at Sam Miranda Winery, and then after that, I moved to Echuca, where I got offered to run a very good restaurant, and to be part owner also of a restaurant, which was back in the days called Oscar W's, and where I got my chef hat back in 2014. And then unfortunately, the restaurant got shut after a couple of years because of the erosion happening. So, and then pretty much, well, I came back home, which is Beechworth for me, and then there on, I've been at River Deck since, and it's just been fantastic, pretty much. Regional Victoria all up.
How did the gig at River Deck come about?
Well, I was leave pretty much after, as soon as I gave my resignation, like we all do, and pretty much putting my CV back on SAKE halfway through the Hume Highway, and I got a phone call from my actual boss, and then it was like, oh, do you mind driving to Albury to have an interview? So I went there, and after a few hours after the interview, I got the job straight away. So that was as simple as that. It wasn't complicated. So it was a good timing. I guess the moment just presented itself, and since I guess there's a lot of people that knows me in one industry and around, so it was pretty much just a phone call to see how I was and how I worked, and job done pretty much. But I'm very privileged to have been offered the job, and still proud of it, really.
It's a really unique part of Australia there, just on the sort of New South Wales Victorian border. Are there a couple of producers you can tell us about of the region that you've sort of used and have connections with?
Well, we work closely with Murray Pure Beef, who does local, who's obviously on the Upper Murray, and we do represent some of the cuts of meat and lamb and goat. We work very closely with them. Before COVID hit, we actually hosted the degustation lunches for people traveling back and forth from China, Hong Kong, Indonesia. We used to come in for a business meeting, had a few courses meal, and then went back on the tour. In terms of producers, we work alongside also a little farm called Alma Organics, which grows their vegetables and fruits, and then we use that in the restaurant also. There's quite a bit of also producers that we use, and I keep well in touch with them. Like the eggs we use at the cafe, we are fully organic, and also working with them what we want, what size we want, and the chicken also, which sometimes we use comes from the same farm, just to make it more sustainable for everyone, really, to know where your food comes from also.
You're also involved with a bit of foraging. What's available in the sort of local area in regards to that?
Well, we do have a lot of pine mushroom around here, and also the morels. Obviously, that's going to kick in September, which as far as foraging concerned, everyone keep their own secret patches around. No one shares their secret spots. But morels coming up. You don't probably get about a kilo a year. That's quite enough. Pine mushroom is quite a lot. And wild berries, there's a lot of blackberries in the bushes in summer. It's pretty much like that sort of jam scenario, or even with some game in summer. There's a lot. There's also obviously there's foraging in terms of food taka, indigenous foods around, which it's a learning curve at the moment because there's so much around here. and well, it's just sort of picking up the right thing to use. And just at the creek, really, there's it's like there's so many creeks here. You can find mint or watercress or any herbs growing along the creek. So yeah, it's pretty much just very abundant of anything around here. You just need to know your spots where to go.
How about you cooking these days? Do you have a dish or two on the menu that you can tell us about that sort of exemplifies what you're doing in Albury?
Yeah, sure. Well, we use I like using obviously Murray cod because we're based next to the Murray, but obviously the Murray cod we use comes from Griffith from Acuna Farm, and it's pretty much using the whole of the Murray on a dish. With you got your fish, and then from the bones we get it roasted, and from a fat, we just render the fat completely and use that in terms of cooking oil. So at the end of the day, he had a whole dish on the plate, which is just probably 80% of the cod, and then 20% just some garnishes and vegetables. But yeah, we do use quite a lot of using the whole animal in terms of, like I like showing my chefs how to do everything from scratch, so we know what to do. And, it's not for my benefit, it's for their benefit and their future. As in, learning is, you always learn, you keep learning every day at the end of the day.
You've had real success in regional Australia, but what's the key to getting a venue right in the regions? Consistency
is the key, is number one key. Without consistency, yes, you get very upset customers at times, but you need to keep them happy. They're the one paying your wages at the end of the day. So I guess the best you keep them happy, the better it is. And also with consistency comes, awards and everything. And I think last year, the year before, we scored best tourism regional restaurant in New South Wales. So and then this year again, we're heading up to Sydney in September for we're finalists again for best regional restaurant in tourism, and couple of other things also. So which is a good thing, it just comes in, as it goes. The last couple of years have offered a lot of adversity for everyone, and you've got the challenges at the moment with the rising waters and the rest access to the restaurant. Have there been some positives and changes that you've implemented as a result of the last couple of years? Yeah, there've been a few positive where like say for the last two, over here there was border restrictions. So I was the only one who wasn't allowed across the border because I live more than a 30k radius from. So my chefs had to take over for me. And I guess not being there for 8 months of a year was a big thing. And it was all done by, phone and talking to them every day and nurturing them. So it was really interesting where the restaurant in New South Wales were still open and restaurants in Victoria were shut down completely. So for that amount of time, it was just by phone and being, 100% confident on them, that we knew what we're doing and, and nurturing them over the phone. And, lots of good things happened. We had to step up in terms of, stepping up a game and, like chef is not here. So we have to make sure everything is all right and just do as if chef was there. Day in, day out. So yeah, that was a good thing. But they sort of stepped up. And I'm proud of the team I'm with now, because they went from not being confident when I wasn't there to being very confident and still carrying on to today.
Delegation and getting other people to take the lead with roles that you might be familiar with or want to be doing, that's quite challenging for people, especially expressing their sort of message on the plate in food. Did this change that was sort of forced upon you, did it change the way that you operate and think about your role in hospitality?
No, it didn't change because when we sort of develop a menu, I get everyone on board. We all give ideas and we all sit down together, and it's pretty much a team effort putting up dishes, and it's not only one person menu. And from there, pretty much we sit down, we sort of do the dish together, and then everyone knows what's expected of them. But it changed a bit in terms of them making, obviously some, like special dishes or their input on the menu, which I was like, look, I'm not going to be here, so you guys take over and let me know what you're doing. And look, the pictures that sort of came out from them, was very, very impressive and good. And, and I was like, yep, I think you guys are ready if you want to move on, And some of them moved on after COVID and to run their own kitchens, and which is a good thing at the end of the day. They were ready to go, so you keep pushing them up for a bit, and then everyone is ready to move on after that. So it's life. You can't keep people there all for 10 years, 20 years. It doesn't work like this in hospitality, unfortunately.
We're moving towards spring and then summer, and a lot of people travel during that time. I know you've got the problems with the rising water at the moment, but what are you expecting in the next couple of months with the venue in the region?
Well, venue in the region. Well, obviously after the floods, we'll be kicking back on pretty hard, and we're just waiting for water to go, and then in terms of venue consistency, well, we'll try and get as many people in, and we do get a lot of people traveling on the Hume to the place, which is a great spot to be in summer and spring, because we're actually just on the verge of the Murray River. Yeah, a beautiful park, and we try and do our best to pretty much recoup whatever we lost, really.
We've made an extraordinary impact in regional Australia for many years now. What do you love about what you do?
I love cooking, that's for sure, and obviously still do after so many years. It's a different sort of vibe working in a highly pressured environment, which I do love, and this is it's more about being consistent day in, day out, and meeting people, seeing different items coming into your kitchen, and producers coming in, and just different people ways of thinking. That's which is great.
Well, Ludo, it's amazing to get you on Deep in the Weeds to hear just a bit of your story. Good luck with the months ahead, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Okay, thank you, Huck. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.